Just about everybody's left the office. I think I can risk having a go at recording second week of videos. Hope you enjoyed the first one. I've noticed quite a few of you have looked at it, which is great. What I want to do today is look at one of my favourite subjects. As a psychologist, I love to look at the way people think, naturally. It's part of my business. And look at particular systematic ways in which not just you, but I and everyone around us, including the smart people, the managers of companies, the superstars, mistakes we make with the way we think. Let me just zoom in. I've come up with, this is just a handful of a number of the systematic biases in cognitive processes or thinking that we make. I'll just go through them. Ranging from, overconfidence to it all looks good in hindsight kind of thing. So go through them. Availability heuristic. This is a great little trick of the brain. If we can think of an example easily, we tend to think that it is more likely to occur, even if the reason that we can think of it is simply because of something that's completely unrelated to its actual prevalence. So, for example, people who watch a lot of Channel 9 and see a Channel 9 news and watch a daily dose of car accidents and murders, drive-by shootings, will probably think that drive-by shootings, murders and car accidents are happening all the time in Australia, when in fact they're extremely rare. So the media can control the availability of something to our brain. It's not just that. I mean, if we happen to live in a suburb and where something or other is happening frequently, but we think the whole world is like that. That's an example of the availability heuristic as well. Anchoring bias. You should try this one when you go out to shop for a car secondhand, or try and pick up a sofa on Gumtree, for example. This is something that's sometimes called focalism. We tend to focus on the primacy of information. The first piece of information that we get about something tends to skew the way we subsequently think about it. So, for example, if I go to bid on something or go into a negotiation process and offer, a very low ball price, as we call it. Let's say it's a second-hand BMW, and I offer $4,000, and the real price is somewhere in the $12,000 to $14,000 mark. By pitching very low, we anchor the whole conversation, and we anchor people's brains in a lower figure. Even where there is an objective figure, so for example the population of Switzerland, or the percentage of people likely to get a particular kind of cancer. If in quiz night you want to ruin other people's chance of getting the right thing, make a loud whisper of the wrong figure, and people's actual answers will anchor around that wrong point, because that's the first point that they hear. It's a general problem. Overconfidence, another general problem. People have far greater confidence in their judgments than they should, particularly in the cases where we are very confident. That's when we are most wrong. I've just written there that, doubt is something that's not particularly a common human condition, but doubt is actually something that we should all aspire to, when in fact we aspire to certainty far too frequently. So confirmation bias. We tend to go hunting for information that confirms what we already believe. So for example, if we are Christians, or if we believe that the Brisbane Lions are going to do well this year, we will go hunting for information that supports that initial belief that we have, and we will amass it. Regardless of what the belief is, we will amass evidence that supports what we have, and other people will amass evidence that supports what they believe. Collingwood fans, for example, will go on collecting evidence that they're going to be up for a premiership very shortly. Franek Effects. This one's a really awkward one. We tend to be risk avoidance about a percentage risk, a probabilistic risk, when a positive frame is presented, and I'll talk in a minute about what a positive frame means. And we tend to be risk-taking when a negative frame is used. So Let me give an example. 600 people have been infected with a deadly disease. There's 2 treatment options, either A or B. Now have a look at these. Tell me what you'd choose. The positive frame or the negative frame. Now the positive frame is saves 200 lives. The negative frame is that 400 people will die. Now, if you have a look at these options, save 200 lives and 400 people will die, they're identical. And similarly, these two are identical. 33% chance of saving all 600 and 66% chance of saving no one. A 33% chance that no one will die versus a 33% chance that no one will die versus a 66 possibility that all 600 will die. Now, when it's presented in this positive way, we choose option A. But when it's presented in the negative way, we choose option B. It's just the way it's framed or presented, risk-taking or risk-averse, whether we present something in terms of deaths or lives saved, in terms of things lost or in terms of things gained. As you can see, you can use a lot of these biases against other people. If you are a manager, you can manipulate the way people think by simply using these common cognitive biases. Randomness errors. People generally have an instinctive misunderstanding for randomness, and that's the toss of a coin, or the likelihood of winning at lotto. Regardless, anywhere where there's a truly random thing, they actually, including winning at business, like you come up with a great idea and people think because you come up with 3 good ideas in a row, you're a superstar. The next idea you come up is certain to win. Remember, that certainty is misplaced because a lot of success is somewhat random. So, for example, we've had 5 heads in a row, we've thrown 5 heads in a row with a coin, it must be time for a tails. Or, look, I've won the last 3, prizes at the RSL for a meat tray. I'm fantastic at this, I'm going to win the next one as well. Even though it's actually a random event and there is no pattern. Regardless of what we think, there is no pattern. When things are random, we need to remember that. Escalation of risk, escalation of commitment, sunk costs risk. This one relates to how we see what we've invested in the past and how we bias the way we think about what we should do in future in relation to a decision. When we've committed a lot to a particular project, we're very reluctant to quit. And we tend to focus on what we've lost rather than what we will lose if we keep going. The classic example given of this one is in a war, for example, the Vietnam War. The Americans invested billions and thousands of lives in trying to beat North Vietnam. And they kept on going year after year with this, even when it was quite obvious from a rational perspective that they were losing and would continue to lose because they had invested so much into it. There was so much sunk cost or cost sunk into it that they couldn't let go of the initial decision. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a good little collection of reminders to be aware of our own thinking and the limits of our thinking. I hope that's interesting and useful in thinking about this week's topic.